So, having been born in Shanghai, China, and having attended their school system up until the age of 10, I would like to make a comparison from what I have personally just experienced from starting grade 5 in Canada and grade 1 to 5 in Shanghai. So, in the Shanghai traditional school system, I definitely had a experience on a very strong emphasis on discipline. So, when you're in class, the way you sit, the way you raise your hand is all very disciplined. So, for example, when you sit, you have to, sit straight at the table, your arms are on the table. When you raise your hand, it's like a 90-degree raise of your hand. And yeah, again, you don't speak when the teacher's talking. If you're talking, you can stand outside the door, that sort of stuff. So, it is extremely, there's a focus on discipline. It is very competitive in the sense of, for example, if grades, oftentimes after a test, your grades will be posted openly on the class whiteboard or outside on by the door. So it is trying to create basically a very intense style of competitiveness in the sense of if you're doing badly or poorly, it will be known to the whole class. So it kind of embarrasses you in a way to hopefully motivate you to do better because no one wants to be last. In regards to homework as well, there's not a lot of time for personal hobbies in the sense of like, hey, if you want to do soccer after school, you might not have time for that because you'll have homework in different classes still that day. And even if you choose hobby, oftentimes it is some generic stuff that your parents want you to do. For example, if it's like musical instruments or just stuff other people do to, again, be competitive about. So it's not really focused on what you like, but it's almost like what you need to do to stay competitive. Um, Pros and cons with this system, I feel like obviously the cons is it is known to cause basically severe stress because you're always in this competitive environment and maybe you're not good at school, but you have to, be competitive because this is your way for your future, for a job, and you have to stay competitive all throughout grade 1 to 12 and in university. So this could be severely stressful. The good aspects of the system is that you will have discipline. You will have discipline and you will have let's put it this way, if you are someone with somewhat poor time management, having homework due the next day would be beneficial to you as you have it assigned and you got to do it for the next day. Which brings me to speak about the Canadian educational system that I've experienced and how I felt about the changes was that when I first arrived here, I feel like everything was turned 10 times slower in the sense of it will be like, for example, a comic book assignment that you have to draw comic strips or, scenes. It will be due the next week. Versus in China, maybe it will be due in 2 days. So in that sense, you're a lot more relaxed. But with that, if you have poor time management, you might procrastinate until the last day anyways. So who knows if that's really beneficial or not. But in that sense, on paper, you have a lot more freedom. The Canadian system definitely has a big emphasis on going outdoor. I remember starting grade 5, and the first thing we did in the morning was go outside for a walk on the field. So that was pretty nice. That was pretty new. Um, but there is a big emphasis on personal hobbies, finding sports you like after class, join a club, play soccer, play basketball. I played ice hockey and soccer, so that would be a huge emphasis on personal hobby that in the Chinese school system I did not experience in the sense of like after hour school hobby because in the Chinese school system you will have a quote unquote like a hobby block which you can choose a course offered, for example, taekwondo or tennis as a hobby. But in Canada there is actually a lot of time for after school hours to really chase that hobby in the sense you can join a club. Um, so more free time in the sense of if you want to play sports, your personal hobby after school, you have way more time on homework assignments in the sense of you will have more time to focus and try to digest the information. There's also a great emphasis I felt in Canada, from what I've experienced, is they really encourage that personal connection. So there's a lot of school projects in the sense of like, hey, find partners, get to know people, work together. Versus in the Chinese school system, I felt like 90% of what I experienced was basically just individual marks and just focus on your own and push yourself as far and as successful you can be. So this is definitely what I've felt. And personally, I would love for an educational system to have a bit of both, in the sense of you need discipline, but in the sense you still really promote that holistic style of um, being healthy in all aspects of your own personal life, so you can actually have that personal growth. So you're motivated to know what you are good at, so you can push that aspect further, rather than just being competitive in school but you don't know why you're really doing that. So a blend of both is what I'm encouraging, and hopefully through this presentation that it gives you an idea of how education can actually mean so many different things rather than just, again, on paper book education. So this is why I decided to do this whole project, so hopefully there's some value in this. And yeah, that's my project on alienation in the educational system. Thank you very much.